Welcome everyone. So really very nice to see everyone. Whether you have your camera on or not is completely fine. Feel free to be doing whatever you need to do and just be comfortable however you are. But we're so wonderful. It's wonderful to see everybody. And just a reminder slash note, we are recording this. This will be shared widely. We really believe in trying to get conversations started around these topics, and for people who weren't able to make it, we're excited to be able to share that. So if you have any concerns about your image being shared widely, feel free to leave your camera off. You're welcome to participate in an anonymous way if you'd rather not be public. And hello to everyone. Yes, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you're interested, and we'll get started. So I want to share a little bit about the organizers for today's sessions. And again, this session is being hosted by the Visualizing the Future Symposia, which is a grant-funded initiative. We have an IMLS National Forum grant to focus on visualization instruction in libraries. And my name is Angela Zoss. I'm one of the co-PIs on this grant. And I am very interested in the topic today because most of my job is doing assessment in the Duke University libraries. I will hand it over to my other two co-organizers to provide brief introductions while we're getting started.
I'll quickly jump in. I'm Andy Rakowski. I am another one of the co-PIs on the Visualizing the Future grant. And today I am going to be helping moderate the chat. And so we'll have some more instructions for that, but I will be in there busily trying to give voice to everybody who wants to participate and talk today. I'm also at USC Libraries. I'm a visualization librarian there. So thanks for everybody for coming today.
Hi everyone, my name is Dorothy Ogden and I'm the Emerging Technologies Librarian at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I am one of the fellows for the Visualizing the Future Symposium. And I will be your Google Doc moderator today. So I will be keeping an eye on the Google Doc. If you have discussion topics or things you want to add that maybe the pacing for the Zoom's not quite ideal for, if you'll add those in the Google Doc, we'll loop back around and keep those in the meeting. And if you also want to recommend resources or things like that, we have a section for that in the last part of the doc as well. So if there are articles, websites, videos, anything that you want to share, please feel free to add that.
And actually, I'm going to go ahead and share what the Google Doc looks like. So for those of you who have already opened it up, you will have seen this, but if not, I'll bring the link right back up in a second. But this is our live notes document for today. When we saw that we had over 100 people and it eventually got up to about 170 people register for this, we knew we wouldn't necessarily get everybody tuning in live, although we have 90 right now, which is wonderful. But facilitating an informal conversation with a large number of people is tricky, of course. So we wanted to offer a couple of different modalities for people to participate. So we did set up this live notes document to allow us to capture more voices and to allow us to kind of participate outside of the video and audio stream that's happening here in Zoom. So what we've done is we sent out a poll last week to anybody who had registered by Tuesday. We asked for some preferences for what topics we should start with, and we can meander through these topics, but we are going to try to prioritize the ones that got a lot of votes. And so this is the results from that survey. And you'll see the most popular topics were training and inspiration for visualization design, choosing and using visualization tools, and visualizing survey data was actually in the top 3. And then finally, sharing library visualizations and dashboards publicly. We might try to get through some of those, maybe all of them, but all of these topics are represented in this document. So if you have some thoughts or questions on one of these later topics and we don't quite get to it, feel free to just jump down into the later topics in this document. Those of you who don't already do this, I love to open up the sidebar and show the document outline. So I think that's under View. And you can click on Show Document Outline, and that should make it easy to jump back and forth between different sections during our discussion. So if our topics kind of transition into different sections, you can get a link to those by looking in the outline. And then if you decide, oh, I really want to share a book or see what other people are sharing, you can jump down into the resource recommendations that Dorothy just mentioned. So feel free to be editing this while we're talking, adding things, adding questions. We'll also be using the Zoom chat. And so I'll go back to our notes here. And I just want to go briefly over what we're calling kind of the instructions for today. So if you're seeing the instructions for today, essentially, we are going to encourage use of the Google Doc whenever possible. So if you want to ask a question, add it to the Google Doc in the proper section. So if we're talking about survey data, you'll click down to the survey data and sort of be live noting in that section. If you want to just take notes with us, you can also help out with that. And by capturing things that are being said by people who are unmuted. If you want to answer and comment and you just want to do it right in the Google Doc, feel free. But then we'll also have this Zoom opportunity. And so if you want to speak out loud, the way we're going to handle that is we'd like you to write your name and maybe a quick summary of your comment into the Zoom chat. So again, you'll go into your Zoom window, you'll open the chat and you'll chat. You can chat to everyone. That's totally fine. You don't have to chat to one of the specific moderators or anything, but we'd like to try to keep track of the order in which people kind of request to unmute, and we'll try to help coordinate that just in case there's a lot of people who are interested. With that, I think we're ready to get started. I'll end this poll and thank you for everyone who participated. I can share the results briefly. It looks like many of the people joining us today have visualization kind of on the lower end of their job responsibilities, which is not uncommon in libraries, but we do have a few people where it's 70 or 80% of their jobs. And then how much of your time would you like to spend on visualization? Generally trends, I think, a little bit higher. So more like 20%, most people would want to use that. And some people would love to be at 90% of their job as visualizing. So that's really wonderful to see. And everyone's welcome, whether it's just a small part of your job or something that you're doing a lot. We are so happy to have you. So I'll stop sharing the poll results. And now I'd like to go ahead and open up the discussion on our first topic. And our first topic, just as a reminder, is going to be design training and inspiration. So we heard from the survey respondents that learning about how to design visualizations well and getting inspiration for design is a really important topic and one that people would like to discuss. And I think what we're hoping for is that we'll learn from people who have already found good resources for design. So maybe we'll start with that. Does anybody have any thoughts about design, about how they get inspiration, how they learned to design visualizations well, that they would like to share either in the Google Doc or by speaking out loud?
I'll talk, Angela. When I started doing data visualization, I was collecting resources like crazy. And I started doing this Friday roundup for my for the staff in the library because, data is kind of overwhelming for people and data visualization sounds hard, but really it's, I mean, in some parts of it are hard, but some parts of it aren't all that obscure. And so I keep a spreadsheet of all these different things I found. And then I have like them coded by topic so I can do topical ones. But so I have like a ton of things on that, and then just blogs.
Okay, what kind of blogs do you follow?
Flowing data, sort of. You could just follow flowing data and not have to follow anything else, really. I feel like because Nathan Yao, is it Nathan Yao?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the first name. I blanked it. He just, he scours the web so thoroughly. And then I like information is beautiful, but I don't feel like it's as data. It's more beautiful driven than data driven. I mean, he uses data, but he doesn't always source his data very well. And sometimes things are a little obscured.
Yeah. So I'm seeing some things come in on chat, which is great. I'm not following the Google Doc as actively but we'll reach out on there in a second. I'll just read out in chat. We've had a recommendation for Stephanie Evergreen, who has a book, Effective Data Visualization, also a blog. We have White Space is Not Your Enemy. Yeah, so Stephanie Evergreen's recent data visualization sketchbook is what Ellie's holding up, which I have but haven't read, so always great. So we have, White Space is Not Your Enemy, a beginner's guide to communicating visually through graphic, web, and multimedia design. General graphic design, I think, is something that really benefits visualization design, especially if you're doing any kind of visualization combinations like an infographic or a dashboard. Flowing data seconded, yes. Flowing data thirded. I haven't been able to find another blog that updates as often. Stephanie is good, yeah. Little Miss Data, that's new to me. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, all of these are these really wonderful. Anything from the Google Doc that's coming in?
Currently, I'm just carrying some things over from the chat. We've got
Sure.
Information is Beautiful as a website, and I've got the book, putting the book titles in now.
Yeah.
There was a comment, and we may not be there yet, but just because about, in addition to bibliometrics and research assessment, telling the research story or research impact. And I wonder if anybody has any storytelling resources, since we are on a resource discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of inspiration and design, it's not just a single visualization maybe that we're trying to design. It might be a whole story or a narrative, and any resources about storytelling and data. Okay, I see Ellie, yeah, sharing Juice Analytics. So there's a collection of data storytelling resources that got shared. That'll be great. Mia, visualization rhetoric, framing effects in narrative visualization. So that's an IEEE TVCG paper from 2011. That's a very popular one and very, very good summary by Jessica Holman. Awesome interactive journalism, which again, is new to me. That's wonderful. Storytelling with Data by Cole Nussbaum or Knaflick. I keep looking over because my bookshelf is here and I think I might have a copy of that one somewhere. There's an unusual inspiration / resource that I might recommend that I do have here. Which is Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. If anybody is interested, I think it's an especially good one for storytelling because it talks about pacing and frames. And there are a lot of lessons I think you can learn. Okay, cool. There's a SlideShare, Little Red Riding Hood. Scott McCloud is fantastic. Good. I'm glad other people have found inspiration there. Thank you so much, Kyle. Yeah, this Little Red Riding Hood resource in the chat. And then pudding.cool from Ellie, which again, very new to me. I have no idea. Susan says, I've watched some YouTube videos. What's in a data story? Understanding the basics of data storytelling. So I think YouTube, we're starting to see a real renaissance of instructional material on YouTube, which is really wonderful. And we will definitely save all these in the Google Doc. Yes, one process we're doing is copying from chat into the Google Doc. And so the live notes document is definitely going to be persistent. It's going to be something that will be available after this webinar. Whatever we're calling this, Viz and Tell. Any other thoughts on design resources, or does anybody want to unmute and talk about their frustrations with design or how hard it is to do design or areas where it's been difficult to find resources? My frustration is campus brand standards. Yes, yes, yes. So how many people feel or are explicitly constrained to the fonts or the colors or the other brand standards of a campus or an institution? Is that really common? Yeah, I can only do so much with Gotham and a 2-color palette. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Sad faces all around. I have seen, where have I seen this? I feel like it might be Bridget Cogley, who posts at Tableau Basics, maybe. I'll find the Bridget Cogley blog unless anybody wants to share it. I think she has had a post about translating brand palettes into effective colors for visualizations. If your institution is very restrictive, it might not work, but if you have a little play and you can use slightly different shades of the standards in your brand, then you may be able to make that work. And there's a lot of really great work on how simple color schemes and visualizations can be extremely effective. Okay, so Tufte's work on visualizing info definitely, I think, is a huge source of inspiration for people when they're starting out thinking about design, partly because Tufte comes with a very strong aesthetic and a very artistic background. And so he brings a lot of personality, I think, to his design. Tufte loves librarians too. That's great. It's wonderful. I've actually never sat in on one of his workshops, but I've definitely read his work. Yeah, and so different institutions are going to have different palettes. I think some have just 1 or 2 colors. Some, like I think Duke's is, I don't know, 12 or something. It's a lot, but sometimes almost too much. Alberto Cairo as a source of inspiration. So I think that's a wonderful name to be pulling up. Now, Todd, I'm curious what your which part of Alberto Cairo's very voluminous work is most inspirational to you?
Well, I think it's just the way he, well, one, how charts lie, but also how he talks about all the aspects of creating a chart and the ways to make it, one, better, but also how it's manipulated to make it worse, or at least representation of bad data. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can't divorce design from misleading and deception. Like that's all tied together.
And he has a great Twitter feed too.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Cairo's article on data ethics. Yeah, if you don't want the full book length version, I think he's got a couple of different ways of summarizing his work on how to design charts well. And accessibility standards. I'm so glad that somebody brought up accessibility standards, because I'm seeing this come up more in design discussions, and especially I think for assessment. There's a lot of restrictions like 508 compliance that really need to be followed for work that's going out in the public. Yeah, so the color accessibility with the WCAG standards for contrast might be something that you guys are struggling with in design and inspiration. I will say, I think 70 Evergreen will sometimes post on 508 compliance and color accessibility. So that might be a place to look. I think I recently saw a pretty decent YouTube video that went through a bunch of color compliance for at least for color vision deficiency. So I'll try to make sure that gets into the live notes. I'll take a pause here and see if there's anything else from live notes that we should be highlighting or saying out loud.
I think we're capturing pretty well what we've been getting in the chat, and I'm really loving seeing all these resources.
Yeah.
The Little Red Riding Hood slide share, I don't know that I saw that, but another one there. Andy just pulled in the information about color design. There is a link to, under one of the discussion topics, sharing in public dashboards that looks interesting. That's a library gate count visualization.
Ooh, excellent. And we did talk about in the description for this Viz and Tell that we might actually want to show some examples. So maybe I'll switch the screen share to that pretty soon. I want to highlight something that Karen mentions in the chat, which is Tableau makes accessibility difficult with their default fonts and colors. That they're not great choices and require constant customization. I can open that. I kind of want to open that for discussion because it transitions nicely from our topic on inspiration and design instruction to tools. And those are really hard to separate, I think, because once I'm already building in Tableau and I'm already doing a lot of work to get the data right, get the visualization looking right, maybe making multiple visualizations in a dashboard, the extra work to make sure that the color scheme is accessible, to change fonts and customize fonts. I'll just be totally honest, I never customize fonts in Tableau because it's just too much work. So I'd be really interested to hear about people's battles in particular tools, or people who find that a tool is especially helpful in some ways? Any thoughts about tools as we transition in that direction?
This might be an awful suggestion, and there's so many people in this room who probably have better workflows, but I think one workaround, especially just for more entry level students, sort of speaking to that Tableau problem, is just exporting things out and going into something that really works, like Google Slides or PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And then just working with fonts there to make it more readable and more customizable without having to, learn a whole lot of other skills, but just sort of like really working with things that already work really well and that students are comfortable with. So that's one workaround that I've found, and that students also are kind of like, oh, now like it kind of just opens up the door to kind of keep working in Tableau more on the data part and not worrying about like, well, what's the font? What are, how am I going to title this and all that? I know how to do that in this other platform, and I can do it really well and quickly. So
yeah, I'm seeing people doing that, working around or picking easier tools like Excel. I really have always advocated for, let the computer do the math for you, right? Let the computer decide how long the bars are, where the dots go, where the lines go, get all of the like precision data work done. And then all the design stuff, do wherever is easiest for you, right? Like you can handwrite labels, you can draw circles. If you want to do like the actual storytelling work, you don't have to beat your head against Tableau to figure out how to get Tableau to do it. You can pull it into another tool and layer on top. So I think that's definitely a strategy I've used.
I think
Yeah.
There's a really good lesson there about data being portable, which sort of gets built into the being able to go cross-platform, is having that understanding about how to make things portable.
Yeah. And I don't know that our tools are doing a great job of that right now. Like you can't just export a Tableau chart into an Excel chart, right? Wouldn't that be amazing if like Tableau knew how to build that same chart in Excel? Like that's probably a huge ask, but I love the idea of, or at least into shapes that PowerPoint could be editing. Like I'll do this sometimes where I'll build something in Illustrator. This is not usually a chart, but like maybe a diagram, I'll build it in Illustrator, which has really nice design tools, but I actually want to make it editable in a PowerPoint. And so being able to do that, which I can, opens up so many possibilities, because then I can share that diagram so that other people can edit it.
From the chat, Emily brought up Google Data Studio, and there was a question about it. I don't know if Emily, you would like to maybe unmute yourself. I don't know how many people are familiar with Google Data Studio, and if you wanted to share a little bit about it.
Sure. We've been using Google Data Studio for about 3 years, and we've used it for one-off projects. We've used it for an Ithaca survey analysis, and then we use it for our data dashboard. And I'm always looking for additional partners. I see Kinneret is on. Hi, Kinneret. And we've worked with Kinneret before on recycling some of her code to pull in all my analytics data right into Google Data Studio. So in terms of automation, because we're a Google campus, it really offers a lot of advantages.
Yeah.
But it has many of the same limitations as Tableau in terms of customization and making sure that it's accessible to folks. Most of our dashboarding is on the back end of our website. Like it's for internal use only. So we don't usually have to put anything through the process that we would like accessibility checking that we would with any other page on our website. So we haven't hit any walls there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm really curious to know if other people are using it and for what.
Yeah.
Can I ask just a super quick question? Have you found any good sort of tutorials or just sort of introductions to it? Or is it sort of more you kind of just learn with the documentation that they have?
Yeah, the documentation they have is pretty good. It is a lot of guess and check. And it's true, like Joe was saying, oh, I'm wary because they might make the tool disappear. We were wary too. We had an exit strategy at first for every project that we did. And we continue to think about, as we build out our dashboard, what would we do if we had to migrate to something else? So that's always in the back of our minds. But but yeah, I think their documentation is pretty good. And then it's a lot of just like, let's try this out and see if it works. And again, that's one of the reasons I wanted to like reach out and say, if anybody else is doing this, we'd love to build our network, because it's so helpful to have people to bounce ideas around with.
Yeah. Well, I am definitely seeing a few people in chat who have mentioned using Google Data Studio. I actually have also been using it a little bit. There's some comments about Microsoft Power BI and some similarities maybe between Data Studio and Power BI. And I think I would agree with that, in that they take a very canvas-based metaphor, which is similar to Tableau dashboards, but Tableau, you kind of have the slotting in by default in the dashboard, whereas in Google Data Studio and in Power BI, I think it's a little bit more freeform shapes by default. Also, I feel like with Google Data Studio and Power BI, you kind of have a data workflow step before you get into the builder. I mean, that's true for Tableau too, but basically you have to get everything down to kind of a single table, I think. And you can have multiple data sources, but it has felt to me, when I want to do data sources that have multiple tables that I need to blend, I seem to have to do that blend first. Again, probably true for Tableau as well. And then you get into that kind of chart creating process. And to speak to Andy's point, in my experience, and again, not an expert in either of these tools, it has been a lot of kind of playing around in the tool and then double checking the documentation.
Hello, everyone. I have a few comments about Google Data Studio and Power BI. My name is Kinneret. I'm the assessment librarian at University of Miami. So I work a lot with Google Data Studio, and you have actually a really nice option to upload your theme through just upload an image of, for example, your university icon with the right colors, and it will adapt the theme based on the colors you just uploaded. And it's really easy to also change the fonts. So that's a comment about that, about the commentations and tutorials for Google Data Studio. One thing, they have a certificate, introduction to Google Data Studio. It's free through Google Analytics Academy. And it's really nice and easy. Another thing really new from, I think from last month, in Linda, in LinkedIn Learning, you have a new course for Google Data Studio for marketing, really very new, but it's walk you through the process of working with Google Data Studio. So it's really good to start with there. About Power BI, it connects with Excel, and it works great with Excel. So, and also the fonts and the colors are really nice and really easy to change. Just a comment.
Those are super helpful. Thank you so much, Kinneret. That I'm really excited to hear an expert kind of sharing lots of resources. I might inject one question about Power BI now. As a Mac user, I always am always a little resistant about Power BI. Is that accurate? Is it accurate that it's sort of best to be on a PC?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I think our Office 365 system allows you to do some things in the browser as an app, but it always feels like the full-featured Power BI is a Windows software. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Power BI has more than two components, but two major components. One is the desktop, and then the other one is the online portion of it. And it's the same actually for Tableau, I think. Mm-hmm. So the process of getting your, your data and do the relational database with connection to your different tables, your different data sets usually needs to be down in the desktop. So you create your data sets and then start visualizing. At the end, you share it through the cloud. Yeah. So yes, and it's preferable through a PC.
Okay. Thanks again. Sorry to put you on the spot there. That's great. So we're talking sort of BI tools right now. Any other tools people want to throw into the mix as things that have been especially life-changing? I see Flourish, I think, came up in the chat. And I've been really curious about Flourish because it's one of the web apps back in the day when I was really looking hard for network analysis, network diagrams. That was one of the few ones where I felt like you could do a node link diagram of some kind alongside normal, you know, more standard charts. Any other thoughts about Flourish? Has anyone else tried it? Or David, I don't know if you feel like sharing, but if you're interested in explaining what you do with it.
I just dabbled with it. I hadn't done the network diagrams or anything. It was just simple bar charts and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's nice for sort of publication type things, stuff like that.
Awesome. Excellent.
The one thing that I would like to add about Flourish, I had a student recently just take some data and actually kind of utilize the storytelling feature in it.
Mhm.
And I think that part is really nice and beautiful and just sort of very reactive and pretty easy just to kind of walk through. It's almost like a slideshow. I mean, it's very simple. But in terms of just, you know, another option for doing a storytelling kind of scrolling option, it's really nice for that. So.
Very cool. Very cool. So we are now, with that mention of network visualizations, maybe transitioning into our next topic. Oh, before we go, we're trying out Data Wrapper. I'm going to read out Walt's comment. We're trying out Data Wrapper for public-facing charts and graphs. It provides an easy interface, quote unquote, and produces visualizations that are personalized and well-designed with little tweaking. That's a tool that's really become, I think, a powerhouse in the last few years. How to make a network diagram accessible. Ooh, geez. Yeah, that's a challenge. How to make any visualization accessible these days is still tricky. I don't feel like a lot of, I've seen things starting to transition from just good alt text to tools supporting better accessibility. I think we still have a ways to go. Now, I've had a bookmark on my list for quite a while to look into a tutorial about JavaScript accessible visualizations, but I think we're really dependent on these tools to support it because we can't all necessarily become expert web designers. One of the points of visualizing data is that we process visual data differently, so it's hard to do accessibility. I think that's valid. We've had some collaborations here at Duke with people down at SAS, the statistical software company, and they've had people working on accessible visualizations for a really long time, and I'm really excited by the work that they've done. They've got some web plugins for converting SAS graphics into something that gets read out loud or sonified, and that's important work. But I think I don't know. My feeling is that it really has to come from industry. It has to come from these Excel and Tableau people to output not just image-based visualization, but visualization that can really be converted into something audible. There is recently, just to go down this path a little bit, and anybody else who knows more about accessibility than I do, feel free to jump in. But I think the interesting things I saw at the recent IEEE Viz conference, which was held online and has publicly available videos, is some attempts either to do machine vision to take a chart, kind of extract data from the chart and then make that readable by a computer. So you kind of bypass the software, and there's software that sort of infers the data from the chart. That's an interesting approach. And then there's some other people who are trying to figure out, I think, how to embed the data table inside the image file so that a screen reader program that knew how to interface with that image file would be able to read the data table kind of out of maybe the actual file contents. But then there was another, maybe I'm mixing up a couple papers. There was another paper that sort of like made very light readable, I think, text or something in the background of the chart. Like you couldn't see it as a human, but as a computer, the computer could actually kind of read the bits off the chart. And so again, these are software-based solutions, but they might be able to we might start seeing advances in accessibility. Any work on converting visualizations to tactile visualizations? There definitely is work. I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question. So There are a lot of 3D printables. Yeah, I know, Dorothy, you've been looking into some of this. I think people definitely process 3D information again differently from visual information. Yeah, good to hear. But again, I've been seeing, I think if you look at Thingiverse, you'll find examples. Yeah, I think the user testing is still trying to establish whether that mode of communication is producing actionable information for users. I think there are some good results there, but I'm not staying up to date on that. Sorry, I'll hold on a second and see if anybody else wants to jump in on accessibility or physicalization, visceralization. We have some good stuff in the chat, so I'll let people keep working on that in the chat and in the Google Doc. I think I want to transition a little bit into the visualization of survey data. We also got some write-in responses, write-in requests for qualitative data or for text data visualization. And so earlier in the chat, somebody put in Voyant tools, which I think is still one of the go-to tools for text-based analysis that combines some visualization. I have used it in the past for student projects, and I think it offers a nice introduction to text analysis and visualization. Any other thoughts on qualitative data, on text data, on survey data, anything that's a little less standard numbers? We've got a blog post on visualizing survey data. I don't know if this is a Tableau-based blog post, but I've seen really good tutorials in Tableau on how to structure your survey data for Tableau and then how to visualize it. Working on learning in vivo. Yes, so we've got kind of qualitative coding software like in vivo or Atlas TI, or there's another one that I always think of and that I've forgotten. Something with a Q in it, I think. Max QDA, I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, deduce, right. I think, yeah, with survey data, we've got kind of two different components in survey data. We've got things that you kind of can turn into numbers, like Likert scales or multiple choice or things like that. And then you've got the free text responses. And so the free text responses, sometimes we'll present them when we do our survey dashboard. Sometimes we'll present the free text responses just as a sort of filterable list, and we'll have people just do the reading directly. But other times I think it's helpful to go ahead and go through a coding process where you look for themes in those text comments, you apply those themes, and then the themes are what you use for visualization. So having that coding phase with in vivo or your tool of choice can definitely give you a little bit more visualizable data. Any other thoughts about visualizing survey data or even complaints about the workflow for some of these things? I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes when I'm doing a lot of data processing, if I have a really big data set, I like to do it in something programmatic like R. But I have found the transitioning between R and these qualitative tools to be a little bit tricky. It's been frustrating not to be able to just, I don't know, somehow do my qualitative coding in R. And there's a package that purports to be able to do that, but that was a little buggy on my machine. Any other thoughts on text-based data or concerns, like people who don't have access to it in vivo or one of these tools having trouble? Used NodeXL once in a course. Yeah, NodeXL as a kind of network visualization tool. Todd, did you want to say more about that?
I was just in the course that we took Twitter data.
Mm-hmm.
They showed networking analysis after using one of the libraries, like the Harvard Library of the Stop Words or the Indent.
Yeah.
What do they call that when they a word is strong or weak? I can't remember what the terminology.
Yeah, like sentiment analysis too.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
it.
Mhm.
So
That's great. Yeah, I think Node Excel is really tailor-made for certain types of data analysis, like Twitter data, and that was super useful. I'm going to keep an eye on our topics.
So we had a couple questions about dashboards.
Ooh, great.
And one was, how do you make library dashboards for administrators? And then the other is, did anyone have success in introducing new types of visualizations to administrators besides bar and line charts?
Yes. And I'll answer, Ellie, yes, Gephi is a network analysis tool. It is tricky to install. It has Java, it has Java issues. If an alternative that may be a little easier to install is Cytoscape, CYTO, Scape. There are some online network analysis tools these days that are very useful. And then some people in different fields like bibliometrics might use VOS Viewer, VOS, which is also very, I think, robust. And so we've got a couple of alternatives if Gephi is something you're having trouble getting to work. Yeah, the dashboard question is an excellent one because our next topic is the difference between kind of public and private visualizations in libraries. So especially in assessment, I feel like this topic comes up a lot. And so we start to think about audience, right? Our audience might be our administrators, and what kinds of visualizations do they want to see? What power do we have in creating those visualizations to recommend certain kinds of visualizations or to increase capacity or understanding and comprehension around certain types of visualizations? And then the kind of converse, if our audience is the public, or if we would like it to be the public, does that change our design choices? Things like that. Anybody want to reflect on that? Does anyone get encouraged to share things publicly? I'd be really curious about that.
You know, I kind of wanted to, oh, sorry, no, somebody else, go ahead, please.
Oh, I just want to say, like, it's interesting because when it comes to sharing things publicly, there's more of a strong emphasis to go towards just giving the number, like not showing any visualization. Just here's the number.
That's fascinating. Okay. Yeah, Todd?
I've been always wanting to visualize and show publicly interlibrary loan traffic and subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I don't get access to the data, so I can't do it. I'm not sure I could do it anyway, but I think that would be a great visualization for internal, for collection development, but also external for to show the work that's done in topics that may intersect too.
Yeah, I think ILL definitely seems like one of those topics where there's general interest. It should be interesting both for decision making, but also just for information about the library. I'm seeing chats about, for example, infographics that might be a good medium for sharing things publicly. Things like Open Access Week. I love that idea. Sometimes administration is very pro-visual. So some people say they specifically have bosses request images for data instead of numbers. So then we also have Lauren. Hi, Lauren. I'm often asked to create visualizations for library administration. Biggest challenge is getting the data. Yeah. So how many people, feel like access to data is one of the biggest problems they have, either with kind of internal visualizations or external? Yes, +1, agree. Mm-hmm. Data dashboards or reports I put together are sometimes shared with others within our library or with others in our consortium. Yes, consortial sharing is one that I'm really interested in because I feel like we're just all trying to do the same thing. ILL especially, we're all trying to figure things out together. The more we can share, the more excited I get. Infographic publicly and dashboards internally. That makes sense. Yeah. We do add things to Tableau Public. So Cornell has some Tableau Public dashboards. Lucky, I get access to just about any data I need now. Good, good, good. Also time to get the data together for visualization purposes. Yeah, fast deadlines, quick turnaround. That seems to be pretty common in my new assessment role, where administration sometimes has a data need and then they kind of want everything very quickly. I get bored of visualizing survey results. I want some fancier data. Yeah, getting bored with data, I think that's a real thing. Seeing the same thing over and over again and trying to figure out how to make it exciting or how to change how you visualized it in the past. It's a year-long goal to start to develop all our departments to build and share data. Sure, because the data are decentralized, right? It's not like every unit in the library is contributing data to kind of a local warehouse or anything. We had a big initiative to create a public-facing assessment data site. Awesome, great to see that out of NC State. I've seen a couple, I think, I'm going to overgeneralize. I think state universities may be a little ahead on this. I've seen a couple of state universities where they're really active about public data sharing. My problem has more about having people ask really tough questions where it's actually hard to get the data that want. Amen on that. The dreaded data cleaning that Tess mentions, whether the data are clean, you can get them, but they're not clean. You can't get them. The question people are asking are not a great fit for the kind of data that you can get. That I think is probably just universal. Yeah, state universities in states that fund public education are ahead on this. So not necessarily at Boise State where they don't have a Tableau server. Tableau server, yeah, that seems divisive. I don't know how many institutions do have a Tableau server. So we have one. I don't think it's as common. Yeah, Cornell does. That is a game changer, I think. If you can share things internally without, maybe the corollary for people who are a Google campus is to have a Google Data Studio where you're kind of sharing things internally rather than publicly. But we had one for a little bit. They canceled the subscription. Toronto has one. Johns Hopkins, no Tableau server, just public. Yeah. BYU has one, but who gets access? State of Idaho Lottery does. Cool. So yeah, I think there's this combined issue of, does the campus have a server? And if so, what restrictions are placed on who can use it and who can you use it to share with? I think maybe at Duke, there is like a medical server as well as a university server. But if you're at a campus where there's some group where they have enough money to have a server, but they keep it locked down to just their little unit, that doesn't help you, obviously. And a library as a unit itself is unlikely, I think, to have the funds to sponsor an entire Tableau server. That's just out of reach. So yeah, SAS Visual Analytics is another server-based visual solution. The admin are being very restrictive on providing access to it. Getting my toe in, but it's going to be very slow getting developed. Yeah, so so we're back to tools, but it totally makes sense because we're talking about sharing, and you can share. Anybody can make an infographic and share it, but when we think about sharing publicly, I think the most powerful example of that is creating something that's a live feed that has streaming data connected to it, that's interactive, that's going to engage the public. I mean, maybe not just libraries. I mean, I think institutions in the whole are struggling with this. I like to see the municipal dashboards that are being driven, in public. I think increasingly, yeah, we'd like to be playing in this field, and it's hard unless you have institutional support. Kinneret, did you want to?
Yes, I have I want to share my experience with live data. So what we did a year ago, I started encourage everyone to use Cognito Forms. If any of us, if you know what it is, it's a form builder tool.
Okay.
So what we've done is just centralize all our surveys and data collection, self-data collection. So for instruction and consultation and all those stuff into Cognito Forms. And by using Cognito Forms, I created a flow with Microsoft Automate. if you are familiar with, it was, a few months ago, it was Microsoft Flow, and created a flow from Cognito because I have this ability in Microsoft Flow with Cognito, and create a flow that flows the data either to Google Sheets or to Microsoft Excel. And those Excel sheets lives in my Box folder on my Google Drive and connected to my Microsoft Power BI dashboards and to my Google Data Studio dashboards. So everything is live. Also survey results, feedback after events. You see the data coming up live as, our people are filling out the surveys. So this is a suggestion for
I love that. I love that. I think the more we can hook these data sources straight in to things and get out of the way, the more we can really leverage data and not necessarily have to. I don't know if this is common in assessment world, but in my mind, I feel like we're all still probably making once a month reminders on our calendars, like go update this data set or something. And maybe I'm the only one doing that, but I feel like at least other people in my department have that same workflow where we have to just sort of go in and touch it again. And that especially when it's a repeated operation, I'd love to get out of that business. So that's a really great tip. Cool. So a little bit more about server-based visualizations in the chat. We've got web-based visualization poster from Walt, from LAC, tutorial. Yes, a request for a tutorial. So we had a request about speaking more on experience with Flow and Power Automate. I know that we've used that a little bit to funnel data from forms to spreadsheets and things like that. Student worker updates things every month. Trying to identify which data I can receive update monthly instead of only receiving it annually. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, administrators, I think a lot of them would love to have monthly updates, and sometimes the data are so high touch that we don't want to do it monthly. But the more we can automate, the better. So Kinneret has shared the Cognito forms link. I will say, I think some of these kinds of things will work even if you don't have access to Cognito. I'm not sure if that's a subscription tool, but I did a flow from just Microsoft form into Microsoft Excel. So that's definitely, I mean, I think, by default what happens is it by default goes into Excel. And then what I did was like an email trigger so that when somebody submits a form, I get an email, because I don't think that was a built-in feature for Microsoft Forms. So Kinneret, do you want to share a little bit of your experience about Automate?
Yes, so it's with no code experience. That's I want to highlight. And what it does, too bad that I don't have any. What it does is just they have applications that they are working with, and Cognito is one of them. One of the companies that they have already built-in connector. And what I need to do is to trigger this flow with choosing one of my forms, through this, creation of the flow. And it starts with when I received a new entry, and then I can choose what would be the next step in the flow. So if I wanted to land in my box and in Excel table, so I choose the box and I choose Excel, and it goes directly into the Excel. And just creating a flow with no codes needed.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks so much. We are running short on time, so I'm so tempted to answer a question in chat, but before we go, while we're losing people, I want to just highlight, you'll get an email from us very soon that will have this feedback form. It's an assessment group, so I'm sure you expected that we would be sending an assessment on this workshop. So we will send a very, very short survey out after this. Reminder of the live notes, those are going to stay active, and feel free to throw things in as you think of them. And our next Viz and Tell in December is actually just going to be a social time. It's not going to have a predefined topic, and we'll send details about that soon, but it's going to be on a different day because we've done these all on Tuesday afternoons. We're going to do it on Mondays, December 7th. really wonderful talking to everybody. The one thing that I will now follow up on, I will take my discretion as the leader here, is about lib insights. And so the SpringShare programs, which again, very library centric, lots of libraries have these. You have a bunch of different things you can be subscribed to, like the calendaring and the lib insight itself and everything like that. Tess mentioned that they have the data going straight from a form there into dashboards, but the dashboards themselves are a little limited. I found that too. I do myself tend to take a lot of data out of the SpringShare programs and put them into something like Tableau. Not always the easiest. I feel like the data exports from the SpringShare programs, I've not been super impressed by. There are APIs for some of them, like the events, but I don't feel like the APIs are always fully featured. And so, for example, we were thinking about using the APIs to get access to our bookings data now that we've got bookings turned on for seats. And the API is only a forward-facing API, like what bookings are coming up, and it doesn't allow you to kind of download your past bookings data as through the API. So your mileage may vary on the SpringShare projects, but you can import data into SpringShare, so it doesn't have to be generated by SpringShare. You can actually not paste in, but like import spreadsheets into SpringShare to blend it with other data sets that are generated by SpringShare. And you can get data back out again or use SpringShare itself to do some of the visualization. Cool. Well, Andy has been sharing some of our links, and I'll just remind everyone that this is a grant-funded project, Visualizing the Future. We have a website where we've been posting the summaries of all of our Viz and Tell and all of our resources. Feel free to jump on there and see what we've got available. Probably see some updates in the website soon because we've gotten so much activity that it's maybe in need of a little restructuring. And we have summarized our recent Viz and Tell, including a recording recently. This Viz and Tell will get a recording shared quickly, and then we will do the closed captioning for it and get that shared more publicly in a couple weeks. And then we'll write up a little blog post summarizing what we learned here and pointing people to the live notes. Any final thoughts or shout outs or?
I'll quickly say, no, say that again, Todd. Sorry.
I was gonna say, have a good, safe holiday.
Yes, everybody stay safe. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, please join us in December for the social. You get information about that, and I think we were already sort of talking about in the new year. One of the next Viz and Tells will be sort of a focus on tools. So I think this conversation that we had today, I think we can really build on that moving forward. So.
Well, we'll release everybody. Yeah, I have so many tabs open. Yeah,
Go close the tabs. we have all the documentation, so you can close them all.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, wonderful. Okay, we'll see everybody later. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.